Hi, Dani. Thank you for being here with me today to chat on all things Silver Sisters. How are you?
I'm great, thanks, Nellie. Thanks for inviting me into this conversation. This is the first time that I'll be speaking about my silver hair journey.
Oh, how exciting. Cool. Well, let's jump right into it. First of all, who are you? What do you love? What's your gig?
Yeah, so who am I? I guess in a business sense, I'm a business mentor. I specialize in working with highly sensitive solopreneurs and helping them to do business differently, to kind of question everything that they've ever been told about how to do business and marketing, and helping them find their own groove. And then I also I have a bit of a focus on using human design, or helping people using their human design strategy to really make their business more easeful, basically. And I guess personally, currently living in Greece. I'm from Australia, as anyone who's listening can probably tell. I haven't lost my Australian accent. My husband and I left Australia, gosh, I think it's coming up to 6 years actually, ago, on a one-way ticket. And since then, we have been living in England and France and Spain for a couple of years, Italy last year, Greece this year. And we plan to be heading back to Spain actually to buy our own place. And my vision is to grow food and be sort of do homesteading, be more self-sufficient, that kind of thing.
Yeah, beautiful. And it was all of that that shone through your own marketing, actually, that drew me to you, along with, ironically, your Silver Sister story. And the little snippets I was seeing of that is actually one of the things that drew me to work with you, because I was like, oh, look, I resonate with that. There's someone on, a similar journey to me. So I'm super fascinated to speak about this with you today and understand what your journey has really been like and how that's integrated into your business and personal world as well. So, shall we start with let's start at the beginning, basically. When did you first notice that your silver was starting to show through, and how did you feel about that? And very fascinating piece here, what was going on in your life at the time, if you can remember, when you first started seeing these silvers?
Yeah. So, part of me wishes that I had have just noticed it naturally, but basically what was happening is I was coloring my hair from, I don't know, like 25, 26, I think it would have been really lovely to let it all come through very naturally. And so initially it was barely noticeable, because it was like I was just noticing regrowth. So regrowth, go to the hairdresser, regrowth, and I was getting it done every 3 or 4 weeks. So there wasn't a huge opportunity. But when I think back to, I knew you were going to ask this question. I'm like, when did I notice? And I'm like, well, I just remember a hairdresser saying once, oh, you're like 50% grey now, or something like that. And I was thinking, am I? So here's what I think happened, because I think that there was a bit of I feel that even though I didn't totally notice it, like knowing that I was 50% grey and thinking about that time, I think there was maybe a little bit of a rapid kind of appearance of it, And at that time, I was working in quite a stressful job. I had moved interstate to open up a new employment service, and then that started to rapidly expand into more offices and things like that for the company I was working for. And I was sort of in Queensland. There was no, I didn't have any other sort of manager there. And so I was looking after a lot of staff. And I also think back to my relationship and how I felt very insecure. And there was always a lot of things that were disturbing me, and just a lot of insecurities. And I remember I was very much a social smoker, but I think back to that time and I either smoked socially, like when I was going out, at a nightclub or something, or when I was just stressed, when I was just emotionally stressed. So I remember doing a lot of that at that time as well.
Interesting. Yeah. And that interstate move, what did that mean for you? Was that moving away from family and community? Was that quite a big move for you?
Yeah. So what had happened is the company I was working for, I wanted to show that I was interested in management, so they were opening up, offices every so often, like maybe at that point, 1 or 2 a year or something. And I thought, yeah, I'll just put my hand up for the next one, just show that I'm interested. Didn't even think I wanted to actually get this job in another state, but I was like, yeah, I'll apply. And, then they were like, you've got it. So I was like, oh, shit, like I didn't have any plans to move, So I remember thinking, being excited and then being horrified and then being, no, I just can't do this. And then I was like, okay, I'm just going to do this for 6 months. And they were okay with that, for me to set it up. So it was like, in my mind, it was like, it's just 6 months. So it's not a big deal. Then, but yeah, there was no family up there, anything like that. And then when I got there, I did actually really like it. I liked the different pace of lifestyle. It was, on the Gold Coast. So yeah, I never moved back.
And
that's where I met my husband eventually as well.
In Queensland?
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. So really fascinating to hear about that interstate move. And I'll share just a snippet of when the grey or the silver started for me as well, and see if you can pick up some similarities. And then I'll drop in some of the German new medicine relevance to sort of early in grey and silver hair as well. So I noticed mine right after, and I think we're probably about the same stage now, Dani.
Oh, wow. See, it's a little bit hard to tell with you.
Yeah. Because I think all of mine is probably actually grey. This is my natural colour.
When you turn your hair there, I can see that, there's, wow.
Yeah. Yep. So those bands at the front
that's
are
all
my
at the
natural,
front.
that's my natural dark. Yeah. And that's stayed. And then the rest of it.
Wow. Is, so unusual, because it's normally these front bits.
Other way around, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I first started noticing mine when I went overseas for nearly a year as well. I did that on my own. That was a solo journey. It was a really big step for me. And I was in a relationship at the time that I had to leave to do that. And I had grand illusions that when I returned from overseas, that we would pick up where we left off, which we didn't. And that was an extremely hard split for me. And then when I got back from overseas, I really realized that wasn't going to come back together. And not long after, I started up my first sort of adult business, which was a restaurant, at the age of 22. And this is really, so I noticed a little bit when I came back from overseas, and then it really started coming on, thick and fast when I had the restaurant. And similar, again, it was a very, very stressful environment, like running my own restaurant with a full team of staff at the age of 22, 23, and just throwing myself in the deep end was really, really big. So yeah, there's, what do you notice about that story that's similar to yours?
Mine was like a few years later, because I was about 25, 26 when I moved, and definitely, threw myself in the deep end, and, but always felt like I was someone who was, quite resilient and things like that. But really, I think looking back, it's like I was just a pressure cooker, and there was no joy there. It was, I was always the first to arrive, the last to leave. It was all about getting stuff done. It was pretty stressful.
Yeah. So similar for me, like I loved the restaurant, but it was a huge, huge undertaking. And so what I'm noticing about our stories, right, is there's a big move interstate overseas. there's some impact on relationship as well. And that, pressure cooker, like you said, of stress as well. And like just that on the go. And what's super interesting about this is that if we look at this from a G&M lens, or German New Medicine, and just to bring in a snippet of that, Dani, you have some understanding, to the best of my knowledge, about German New Medicine, but for those watching, German New Medicine is essentially a guidebook, a roadmap that directs us where to look and how to understand our symptoms from the perspective of them being initiated by shocks, traumas, and very specific events. So it really helps us get to the root cause of our symptoms. Now, early graying in silver is a biological program, is a symptom, particularly when, like I said, it happens early. And the conflict theme that's attached to early graying is what we call a brutal separation conflict. So it's a situation or circumstances that somewhat catch us off guard, and where we have either been separated from something or someone that we loved and didn't want to be, or we want to be separated from something and we can't be. And in the case of you and I, sounds like there might even be a little bit both ways. So there was that separation, that actual physical move, interstate, overseas, relationship stuff. And then on top of that, the intensity of some really high pressure stress scenarios. So how does that sit with you to hear like that theme attached to that scenario? Is there resonance there for you?
First of all, I just think you explained German New Medicine so well there. Like that's such a great, I hadn't heard of it like that. So that was so cool. The other thing that came to mind while you were saying that is I just remembered that when you're saying about the being separated from someone, my first close family member that, I really cared about, my grandfather, my pop, died when I was in those years. And even to this day, like thinking about him now, I get a bit upset, so
elicits an emotional response.
So it's sort of like, so that could have an impact as well.
Absolutely.
Probably does, especially if it's still getting an emotional response.
Definitely. We can see and feel right there that there is an emotional response elicited. And that's often such a good indicator and a key to know that there's still emotional charge there. And I often find big love I often find that there are layers to these things. Like it sometimes is not just one thing, but at that particular moment in time there will be layers. So we've got the moves, we've got the separation, we've got the loss and of someone we love, and then the stress on top of it all. And with graying hair, it is a brutal separation as opposed to just a separation. So a lot of separation conflicts will show up in skin rashes, but the brutal separation, and it's a similar program for vitiligo, is that how you pronounce it? I think the skin condition when we get patches of vitiligo, I think it's how you pronounce it, skin patches of different tones and colours and the whitening of skin. So similar program, but that brutal is just what you've expressed there. It's something quite deep, quite personal. Like this isn't just a surface level separation. It's something that was really highly emotionally charged for us. So thank you for sharing just there. That was
it's so interesting to think that really that's I think it must have been a really huge contributor.
Absolutely. And the sorts of things I would even consider there are, do you have a remembrance of you called him Pop? Is that so did Pop used to like pat you on the head or stroke the hair or anything like that, or was he good at hugs? And we consider the location as well and what that meant.
Nothing comes to mind in that regard, possibly, but he was just so kind to me. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
A really nurturing figure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. All right. Well, from that space and energy to another. And I'm very happy to chat with you more on this later also, by the way. So as we move forwards then, what brought you to the decision to just completely own it and actually grow it out?
Yeah, so one thing that comes to mind is that it could have even been around that time. Let's see, maybe my early 30s or something. I always remember seeing this photo of a female Tibetan monk or monk, I'll just say she's a monk. And I remember looking at her and thinking, I reckon I'm probably the same age as her. But she was, her hair was very short. It was grey. I just remember her blue eyes. There was something very wholesome about her look. And I thought there was something in me that went, I want that, and then I remember going and looking online for, other, because I didn't want to look like a monk, right? But, who else is going grey? I went searching for images of women that were grey, and everything that I found was uninspiring. I was just like, oh, and this was some time ago now. It's, so I was just like, I remember contemplating it, but, just, I don't know. It didn't happen. So much easier these days because now it's a thing, right? That people are doing. And I guess the idea about this started to kind of arise up again in the last, 2 years or so. And, these days you can follow people on Instagram, especially there's a whole movement, the Grombre movement and the Silver Sister movement. And there's all these women and they just look beautiful, with their silver hair. And so I just started following a lot of that for inspiration, trying to build up to it. And then it was February last year that I had my last color. And remember, we were on our way to Japan to go for a wedding. And I remember, I don't know if I made this definite decision, but I kind of I had this hair color, because then obviously when we got back, by the time we managed to get back to where we were living in Italy, it was all locked down and all of this sort of stuff. So I couldn't go to the hairdresser. I bought a color, right? But I was just starting to let it grow. And I was like, oh, just see how we go. And my husband was really supportive. I didn't even say, hey, this is what I'm going to do. I just started doing it, And he was like, yeah, keep going, babe, keep going. And so I didn't even know if I could keep going, but I was just like, this is interesting, I'm letting this grow, I'm showing people, and this is kind of fun right now, but can I really handle this? What if, when my hair's all white here, will I be able to live with that? And I guess what I found is that that first stage is quite difficult because you're not really seeing anything really. But, when it came to, I really started seeing this lovely color, there was this texture and this, and I was like, wow, it's really pretty, so I started to feel really fascinated by it. And, the other thing that comes to mind is when I look back on photos now of me, even from a year ago or, and beyond, my hair has been really dark before. And even probably a year ago, I look at it now and I'm like, I just feel like that was wrong. That was wrong. My hair was too dark, nature knows best, right? So my hair was darker than I had, had it, than it was naturally, I guess. So, yeah.
So good. I love how you shared there that your partner really supported you in it as well.
Yeah.
That's very much been my experience too. My partner was all on board with it. He was like, yep, go for it. Silver fox. I'm all into it. But it was actually really similar journey for me as well. I had tried several times previously to grow it out and failed on the attempts. And then likewise, my last color was in Feb 2020. I think the lockdown probably helped with that. And I was just like, right, okay, now we're happening. I had also just been on a really big personal development retreat, and I had very much come into, I guess, just another level of being comfortable and confident with myself and really being in myself. And so it just was, it was just the right time. I was just like, no, I'm doing it. I'm really, really doing it this time. And same, bit awkward, you know, when it's here and it just looks like you haven't been to the hairdressers in a while. But then as it kind of, you know, gets down to about here, it's quite obvious that you haven't just forgotten to book your appointment. You're actually doing something. And
I started wearing my hair like, just really pulling it back like this. So it was like really obvious, like, yes, I'm, you know, like it's like when I went out to the supermarket or whatever, it's like, this is happening. I know I've got gray, you know. And that kind of helped me to sort of like be more obvious about it, rather than, because initially I was actually using that, you know, that colored spray.
Hairspray.
And then I was just like, oh, I'm over it.
And likewise, I did find, you know, good old Instagram was quite an inspiration for me as well, to see that there were other people doing it. And then the GNM really, like German New Medicine, really helped. That was another piece of confidence for me too, because it was like no longer did I see it as you know, a malfunction of my body. It wasn't something that was wrong with me. It was something that was happening because of a specific event in a biological program, and something that was meant to be happening in, like you said, in alignment with nature. So that really helped too. And just while I'm here, it's completely random, but going back a step to the GNM piece, and just watching you express and have that little moment there before, this is the other thing I love about GNM, is that yes, it's like great to be able to resolve our own symptoms, right, and understand our own symptoms, but it also directs us to places and areas in our lives where there is still emotional charge, and it gives us little like insights into little clues into ourselves, into where we still need to work, into what's important to us, and all these different things. So it's such an amazing personal development tool as well. So that was just strong in my mind. I throw it in there while it was there. And so it seems like you're pretty happy with the decision to grow it out. And alongside of that, what positive impacts have you noticed from making that decision, standing by it? How's it impacted you personally? How's it impacted your business even? I'm keen to hear all the different layers.
So I think it's certainly helped me feel more comfortable in my own skin. Some of the things that I've noticed, and I'm not quite sure if this has anything to do with, you know, going silver, but I find now that, and it happened quite suddenly at the end of last year, there's certain people who I'd been following, whether it be in the spiritual development community or business coaches or anything like that, any content or videos that I've consumed, and even authors that I've spoken very highly of, and you know, I just can't listen to them. It's just like, you know, I try, like in December, one of my goals was to reread this book that I really love. And eventually I got to it, but you know, it was like the last thing I did on my like little December plan. And then I got to it and I just noticed inside, I just couldn't read it. I just wanted to throw the book away. And I'm like, wow. And it just was happening with so many people at once. So I don't know what that's about. And I get, what else? I think like people have been very supportive about it. And, you know, I think I'm glad that, you know, because I felt when I first considered it, there was such a lack of role models, you know, and so I kind of feel good that at least I can be somewhat of a role model to people, and yeah, and in business as well. Like people can say, well, if Dani can like, you know, grow her hair out like it and still do videos or something, you know, I can too. So yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
When you were sharing about just that reduced tolerance, or that, I don't know if you want to call it like a perhaps just not resonating with people anymore. Yeah. I think for me, what that is again part of that just really coming back to true self. And, you know, I mentioned this has just been, for me, it's just been another layer of completely accepting who and where and how I am, which is, for me, that's part of the pathway home to ourselves. Yeah. So perhaps it's that step in the pathway home to yourself that you've actually started to go, no, that no longer serves me, or I don't really need that, or I'm progressing. So that served its purpose where it was. And now, you know, I'm headed somewhere else. I experienced a similar thing, but not so, a little bit in the sort of business world and the guru world, but a lot in my local community as well. I noticed myself getting really quite a lot stronger with my boundaries and with who I wanted to be around, and with where I wanted to be and where I wanted to be going, and all those sorts of things. So yeah, maybe that was an element in there for you with that one. You were about to say.
And you know how I think this happens to everyone, like we follow people and unfollow, you know, it's sort of like a switching out of people all along time, you know, like not this person but that person, not that person but this person. So what I noticed with this time is that there's no switching in and out, it's just switching out, like it's just out, you know. Wow. And so it's keeps bringing me back to my own inner authority. And it's created a lot more spaciousness, you know, to the point where lately I'm like, okay, I can see now. I used to sort of like get some, I don't know, I guess it's a little bit of an addiction as well. Like what have they got to say? And what have they got to say? And so I'd be spending my time doing that. And there was an excitement attached to that as well, because what are they going to say? And so now that there's nothing of that and I've got more time, it's like, all right, what are you going to say, Dani? What do you really want? And how do you want to see this world? And so, yeah, it's for the first time ever, I can say that I'm like this word boredom comes up. It's like I'm not bored, but I'm the closest to bored that I've ever been, in that I've always been doing something. You know, and I have, and I have more kind of like, because so many of the things that I would normally be busying myself with, I don't want to do anymore. I don't want to look at it. I don't want to, you know, so it's interesting.
Yeah, that inner authority really, really resonates with me. And I have to wonder, like, which came first? Was it that's really stepping into the inner, you know, chicken or the egg? Was it really stepping into that inner authority that actually prompted you to make the call and grow it out because you're in that space of confidence? Or was it stepping into that space of confidence and making the decision to grow it out that really got you back in touch with the inner authority? So fascinating concept, but either which way, I think it's a brilliant resolution, really, or a brilliant outcome.
There's one thing also I wanted to mention. I don't know if you have anything to say to this from a German New Medicine perspective or any other perspective, but I was meeting with a colleague a few weeks back, and she, she's quite, it sounds cheesy to use the word spiritual, but she's out there. Let me just say she's out there with a lot of things. And all she wanted to know was, we were talking, she's like, Dani, when are you going to cut your color out? Like when she was just so excited. And she was saying something about this clear, me being a clear channel. And, this, I don't know, there was two ideas I heard. I'm not sure if they were both from her, but this other idea was this being restored to the original template, like the something about with the color being gone. It's like, so, I don't know, something about this clearer channel or something. And I thought that was really interesting because we associate, well, maybe not in this modern day, but there's this idea of like the wise old crone or the wise old lady, and I wonder whether the silver has, that has some effect on.
Definitely. I have really wondered this myself as well. Yeah. And just to share a little spiritual woo-woo, pretty out there piece too, is perhaps a year after. So that retreat, that personal development retreat that I went on that preceded my decision to grow it out was extremely powerful. And perhaps a year after that, I did some Reiki training, my Reiki 1. And I had an experience where one of the other candidates was practicing on me. I was laying on the bed and tying these two together. So at the retreat, I had lots of very different experiences, very heart-opening experiences around all sorts of sentient beings and alien forms and all sorts of like quite intense things come through. Lots of ancestry pieces as well. And when I was lying on this Reiki bed, I was taken out into the bushland and kind of welcomed home by a whole, this was a visualization in my mind or a journey in my mind, welcomed home by a whole community of all different kinds of beings and ancestral characters. And in that picture, I had long flowing silver grey hair. And it was very much like a sign of things to come. And there was that sense of like, this is part of the process of coming home, of coming back to yourself. And that, like you said, the wise old crone kind of figure as well. So so much, like so many tangents we could take this conversation on. I do think there are multiple layers to it. There's things we will never know. There's things that just make sense intuitively. But all in all, what would you say to someone who's considering growing out their natural silvers and greys? I'm throwing this one at you. I didn't prep you for this one.
Well, I guess all I can think of is there's no one right way to do it, but there are a few ways to do it, because you can go, I've seen a guy who does the whole look, like it takes hours and it's a really long process, but you come out with this already gorgeous hair, that you can really easily grow into. You can obviously just do the very natural way, or you can do it gradually, like get highlights and streaks and stuff. I actually ended up getting when was it? Maybe 6-8 months ago, the ends of my hair were lightened a bit.
Yep, I did the same.
So, and I guess the other thing that really helped me along was just looking at those pictures, like following people. And really, I think, no one's going to look down on you. Like you get admiration for having the guts, the boldness to do this. And I think that was the other thing for me. It was like when I started sharing about this, there was the one or two people who went, "Oh my God, I could never do that." That fueled my fire a bit, because it was almost like, oh, people really have a strong, I can't do that, I want to do it more now, which is me all over. You say I can't do that, I want to do it now. And I just will add that at the same time, I started sort of my, I don't know if you've heard of the curly girl movement or process. And so I was doing that at this really round about the same time. So I thought I'd lost my curl. I was relying on straightening irons and all, GHDs to curl my hair. And so now I've kind of, it feels good to be coming back to sort of this more virgin hair where, my hair is getting curlier and, I know how to work with it now. So it's like, I've spent years straightening my hair and doing all sorts of things with it that were not my natural hair. So in so many ways, Yeah. And it's so low maintenance as well. That I
Yes,
absolutely love. Yeah.
Low cost, low maintenance.
Yeah. It felt like a luxury the other day to go into the hairdresser, have a haircut, and like be out in half an hour.
Yeah,
it's
like, amazing.
Oh,
And then I have other people say to me, people pay big bucks for this color.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
On purpose. I love that so much. I completely agree. Like the same thing. I looked up all kinds of different ways to do it. In the end, I've loved this process because it really is a process. So it's been, it wasn't just like instant. I've had to go through the painful parts and then finding the joy in it and all sorts of different ways. But like there's different ways for everyone. But all in all, I'd definitely say it's been a positive move. I think it's impacted, all areas of my life positively for sure. Still have my moments every now and then where I'm like, oh, is this really what I want to be doing? And then I'm like, yeah, it is. It feels good. It feels right. I hope in some way, shape or form, this has been, of inspiration to others out there who are coming home to themselves as well.
Yeah. And I was going to say, have you straightened your hair, or is it naturally dead straight? Or
sometimes this is just a light straighten through. Mine is somewhere in between. And some days I do leave it completely natural. And then others I kind of just want a nice, soft, fuss-free look.
Yeah. Because with this curly girl approach, the lady who put it together, she believes that really most people have a curl in their hair some sort of way, but we just don't know how to deal with it. In fact, if I left my hair to just dry naturally, it would just go frizzy.
Yeah.
So that's why. So it's an interesting thing as well.
Yeah, cool. I'll have to check that one out as well.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, like I said, I'm sure there's so many tangents of this that we could actually chat for hours on. I've thoroughly enjoyed. It's been a really fun conversation and full emotional spectrum in just, what are we, half an hour or something, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing so rawly with us. And like I said, I hope this is of some inspiration and help to others who watch it too. In the wrap up, do you want to just let us know a little bit about where we can find out more about you, your offerings, who you love to work with, and finish up there?
Yeah. So probably the easiest point of reference to remember is my, what do you call it, Instagram name?
Handle?
I don't know. Handle, which is The Quiet Marketer. Otherwise, my website's danigardener.com, and I guess we'll put the link below
pop the
to get the
notes
right
in.
spelling for that. And as I mentioned earlier, I love working with highly sensitive people. You saw a demonstration of that earlier, right? Anyone who just is tired and exhausted of trying to build their business and follow like the mainstream conventional advice, and they're looking for maybe a different way to sort of look at growing by slowing, which is one of the things that I love to demonstrate and talk about, so
it was that and the Silver Sister that attracted me to you. So that was the winning duo for me, the quiet marketing. And I was like, oh, there's a lady who's running the same thing I am. So highly recommend reaching out to Dani. I've been doing some work with her as well and can vouch for her brilliance. So it's been an absolute pleasure to have this chat with you today, Dani.
Thanks so much, Nellie.
You're welcome. We'll speak again soon.
All right, bye for now.
See you. Bye.